Hello everybody, my name is GrimReaper2458 and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Nerf Accu-Strike Alpha Trooper. Now, I know it's called something else, but I don't really care to know what it's called. I found it thrifting for $1.70 and it works completely fine. Came with its original drum and its original stock. So let's get started into this modification. Alrighty, so let's open up this Alpha Trooper. What I use is a PH0 screwdriver. This one's been through hell. We're going to take the spring cap off and then the front pump grip off first, because those tend to be issues in the blaster, and you can always change these out, and they've always been different with the bolts for the blaster. Brain's fart. So this guy actually has a rather simple pump grips. It's not really painted much. It is on the other side. We'll see that in a second. The top two screws here for this guy are different. They are smaller than the rest of them, which you'll see in a second. What I'm doing here is poking the screw from the inside out so it falls out easier. You can see the top one there is from the top, and the rest of those are from the bottom of the handle. Make sure you don't put those screws in the wrong way, because if you put the long ones in where the short ones go, you're going to have a screw poking out on the other side of the grip, and that is not very comfortable. The ones on the top here are the shortest in the blaster, and the rest of these are regular sized Nerf screws. You can honestly replace these with any other blaster that you come to find. You can honestly find these kind of screws in, say, a Raven or something. They are medium-sized and nothing really special. The one to the left of the Nerf logo, where my thumb is currently, is a smaller screw, and it's the same screw size as the two ones on the rail attachment piece. So those are the differences, and the stock cap will have a different set of screws. And when you're unscrewing a blaster that hasn't been taken apart before, you might notice some popping sounds like that. That is because the screw is finally going to release the tension that it's been holding to keep the blaster together. Alright, so now we'll split the blaster apart. Sometimes your blaster might not want to come apart, but it just takes some manipulation of the shell. So that is our side, and we'll set, that happens a lot. We'll set the other side of the shell to the other side for now. We'll flip it over and get all the screws out. Now you can see the technique I was doing, which is poking the tip of the screwdriver through the screw holes to make sure those screws go out completely, because sometimes it's hard to just shake them out. Sometimes you can do it. It depends on the blaster and how long the screw is. For screws that poke out a bit more than they're supposed to, I spin the screw around like I did there, and it pops them out easier. And what I like to do is group these all up so I don't misplace any screws or any parts during my reassembly. And right here we have the other side of the magazine release, which is held together by the same size screw as the rail attachment piece. Now, sometimes this comes out with fingers, sometimes you need pliers like that. And we're going to leave it in that orientation, because what we're going to do is make sure that we don't get it backwards. Although this does have an indent right there, it can be misplaced in the rush of assembling a blaster, so I just put these in relatively finger tight and set it to the side. So that is our completely stripped left side of the shell. Now we'll move on to the right side of the shell. So we're going to take all of this out. First off, starting with the muzzle, I usually like to go front to back when I strip my blasters. Just makes it a whole lot easier in the end. So we'll take this white piece out, set it to the side. And then we're getting into our locks. This is a piece that you're going to want to keep. That is the slam fire mechanism. Obviously going to keep the trigger and its screw and spring. Very important to the operation of the blaster, obviously. Jam door. And then our breech system, you're going to want to take that little guy holding in our dart tooth and set that system to the side, and then take this entire system out with our catch and our wimpy spring. Like, that is wimpy. So we're going to take this and we're going to actually cut this lock out. It's a magazine or mag lock. Not entirely sure how it functions, but I don't care. As you can see, I'm deleting it from this system. Just makes operation of the Alpha Trooper a lot more smoother than it is. We also have our rail attachment tooth and our spring to go along with it. Make sure you don't lose those guys. And right here we have our lock section. All those pieces there, which I'll show in a closer view, are our magazine and trigger locks, or half prime locks. As you can see, I'm struggling with this screw because it is a very, very long washer head screw. I'd recommend keeping these guys. And we'll take out our locks. We have that piece with its spring, and then we have all this garbage under there. I usually just flip it out over, it spills out. So that is what our parts look like. You can choose to keep them, but I'm going to throw them away. And we'll take out that little dinky spring, throw that away. And then we'll take out the rest of our magazine catch system, which includes that tiny screw, that little piece, and then the other side of the magazine release. Now I'm professional, but try to put this all together so I don't lose it like the other side, but then you'll find out later that I'm struggling with the screw, so I don't really care to put it back together. You can see me attempting it and then missing the hole because I am just that much of a dunce, I guess, and I just don't want to deal with it, so we'll just set it over here for now. Alright, now we have our completely stripped LQ Trooper. You want to make yours look exactly like mine. Don't worry about that little black piece, you're going to want to keep that in there. And yeah, we'll get to sanding on this guy, just the grip and whatnot, so we can paint this guy in our grip colors. We'll paint that guy there, and we'll paint the grip while we're at it, just to make it match and not say LQ Trooper or LQ Strike series, whatever guff on it. It's very important to keep these pieces aside because you don't want to paint stuff you don't want to paint, and we're going to be painting the grip and not the main shell. So let's get back to that. Using this painter's tape, I recommend using 3M to cover up the part of the shell which we do not want paint on. It seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people use duct tape or some other kinds of tape. I've seen Scotch tape, I've seen a lot. Painter's tape, if you can get it, is very, very good at what it does, obviously, because it's painter's tape. Right now I'm just doing the basic lines of the blaster, and I won't show you the entire process of the taping because that is very, very boring. So I will cut back to when this is all taped up. Alright, got the other side of the shell all taped up. Now we're going to work on this side of the shell. Alright, so I have both these taped up and they look really good. I used some paper to go around the parts that I didn't want to waste tape on. This is a 3M sponge sander. I really recommend using it for painting these grips, and we'll be back when this is all said and done. So I'll be only showing about one half of this because I don't think anyone wants to sit and watch someone sand. I feel like it'd be incredibly boring. A lot of paint is up to the prep work that you do, not necessarily the paint that you apply. It's interesting. Making sure that you get all the nooks and crannies of the shell all scuffed up. You don't necessarily need to remove all the paint on the blaster because it is unnecessary to do, and you can do it for a more slicker paint job, but I recommend doing this because I've had some really good luck with just scuffing up the blaster because you want the paint to have a surface to stick to. Now, a sponge sander can get into the weird tight areas of a blaster that you can't necessarily get with any regular fingers or anything like that. If you don't have a sponge sander like this, I would recommend using 400 grit sandpaper, 400 or above sandpaper. Alright, so I just got the other side of the blaster all sanded up. It looks pretty good. Now I use isopropyl alcohol. I use 91%. I would recommend using something a little bit less than 91% alcohol, but it's what I have on hand. Now what the alcohol does is it puts the dust out of the blaster, and I spill it all over my bench because I'm a dunce. It takes all the plastic shavings off and all the paint dust marks and other junk that could have hit it. I did find this at a thrift store, so I do want to make sure I clean this relatively well. We're going to make sure that we don't hit any of the taped edges because this is a liquid and painter's tape does not like liquid. It does not like to stick. Yeah, that's disgusting. 91% can also take off paint if you don't want to sand that much off. It'll also mar the surface, or not mar it, but most likely dull the surface, which makes paint a lot easier to stick to, I found. 71% is better at removing Sharpie marks and colored scratches on regular plastic. So if you have a rare blaster with colored scratches, I'd recommend getting some isopropyl alcohol. So we'll put that to the side and we'll sand the white part of the grill piece for the Alpha Trooper, because on any Gear Up blaster there's no white, and we're going to be painting this completely to look like a Gear Up Alpha Hawk, as in Hasbro made one, but they never did because Hasbro is lame. So using the same technique, scratching it with the sponge and then taking the isopropyl alcohol, cleaning your fingertips apparently, and then cleaning the blaster or the grip or the grill. Now we're sanding the grip. I was actually thinking about sanding off the warning labels, but I decided against it because I want this to look as authentic as possible, and Hasbro wouldn't make something without warning labels. So making sure that we get every part of this blaster, not hitting the warning labels too heavy. With this, you're going to want to make sure you get the paint off mostly completely. With the sponge, it actually attacks the paint really well, as you can see there. And you might see the junk that's all in the groove there. We're going to take that out with my super secret method. Again, making sure that you sand everything. And then taking our leftover thing here and scrubbing it. Now you could use a pick to get at the dust in there, but I just blew it out and it works relatively well. Same story to the other side of the grip there, and as you can see on that grip, it is very dull due to the isopropyl alcohol. So let's go paint this. So this is the paint I'm using. It's a black flat color paint. And here it is outside. Typically you want to go inside under a garage, but I do not have that at the moment as both of my parents are home. And you're going to want to make sure you glove up. I usually take gloves from work so you don't get paint on your hands. Here's the first coat. Make sure to stay light, stay even. Don't go too heavy. You can see there I have some very obvious missing spots. We'll get that on the second coat. Now you're going to want to wait 15 minutes. While that's drying, I think I found a magazine for this build. As I strike on it, found a good outlet, should be perfect. And while we're waiting for the paint to dry, we can clean up this stock. It has some scuff on it and some Goodwill tags that we need to remove. So here you can see I removed it with some water and soap, and then we're going to take some Goo Gone, which is my personal favorite. One spray should do you. And I cleaned that up, and then that is the second coat. Again, stay light, stay even. Not everything is hit, but that is perfectly fine. And this is why I recommend gloves. It's tiny, but at the same time, yeah, I don't want that all over my hand. And we're waiting for the paint to dry, and we can take a look at the Sleeping Beauty there. Here is it after the third coat and the removal of the tape. It looks fantastic. I love how this thing came out. The parts are all drying right now. It's a beautiful day out, so they had a nice warm day. Here's it back from the inside, and we're going to copy the silver on the Nerf logo because I feel it is missing from this, and Nerf would, back in this time or era, would do that kind of detail. So we're going to put a paper towel under the blaster to prevent scuffing, and we can draw on that to make sure our Sharpie is fine. So we're going to do this little patch, then do this off camera because I need to get nice and close. So then we're going to compare these. It's not perfect, but it is relatively nice looking. Alright, so we're going to paint this drum while the shell is waiting for its base coat to dry. So what we're going to do is take off the front plate because on the Raiders drum there was no or gray like front piece to the drum. So we want to remove as much of the original N-Strike theme as possible. Now these screws are relatively standard as well. So if you mix them up with, say, the Alpha Trooper's main screws, they can either be changed over. They aren't very important. So this will come out with a pin as it is attached to the little wheel in there, and this is going to just sit in there freely, so we don't really have to worry about it for now. We have some dents in the bottom there from it falling or something. You can see it's a little bit squared on the inside of the screw. So to fix that, one of the ways I do is I take a X-Acto knife and cut a new round surface around there so the screw can actually fit in there. Blow out the residue, and there you go. Makes it look a whole lot better, and it'll make it look newer. So we're going to sand the gray part, the light gray part, not the inside. And then we're going to throw some tape on here. Now this may look very unprofessional, just throwing some tape on there, but you'll see what I'm doing in a second. So 2 things of tape should do you plenty good. Make sure it's all tight, and then we're going to take the exact same knife and cut a circle around there. Now this is very tedious work. I am doing this a little bit fast, and this proves to be a problem. That's the normal speed I would do it, and then I remembered that I was recording a video, and then I get anxious that I take too long. So this is what happens when you take for granted the opportunities that you have whilst taping a blaster, because you want to make sure that you have everything as perfect as you want your final product to be, and you don't want to rush taping. As you can see, it's peeling right there, and that will definitely be shown, so we're going to try and fix that as much as we can. But as you can see, that will have a circle effect from wherever you cut around, and it'll get it as clean as possible. Mine isn't too clean. I'll try and clean up the edges and whatnot and throw some more painter's tape around it. Alright, so we got that taped off, and I got the inside of the drum all taken out. So now we're going to move on to the stripes on the side of the drum, because the Gear Up Raiders drum has 2 stripes on the side of the drum to give it that Gear Up vibe. So we're going to cut this down length so we can get a smaller width of tape to act as a pinstripe. So we're going to try and get the same angle as the piece of tape that I put down to make sure that your stripe actually looks consistent. And you want to make sure to measure 100 times, then put it down. With painter's tape, you can remove it and reapply it only so many times, because eventually the stickiness will wear out, because it's only painter's tape. It's only meant to be there for a bit. So we have the thinner front of the line in the front, and then we have the thicker line in the back. And this is after covering it all up. I put some paper that I had lying around on it to cover up the parts that I don't want overspray on. You're gonna want to make sure that your painter's tape is all nice and secure, and that is a very, very nice line in my opinion, and it comes out looking really good. You can also use note paper. I have just this roll of paper, so any paper should be fine. And then I have that circle fixed as well. So we're ready for paint. So I painted that off of camera, and now we're going to move on to the shell of the blaster. Now this is after a day of drying, and it looks really damn good. There is some little mess ups there in the paint, but I don't mind. This looks really fucking good for what I had. Here is the pump grip. The inside of it is unpainted to remove friction from the paint rubbing on the inside of the priming mech and gumming up the works. I also painted the inside of this grill, so no matter what angle you look through, it won't show any white. That was a touch that I did last minute before the weather got really cold last night. I also painted the inside of the grip there to cover the entire sling point, because when you put the shells together, that sling point is shown on both sides. Really weird design choice, but that's, I guess, what Hasbro wanted to do. So we're going to be painting the inside of the grip here for the logos. I'm going to be using an acrylic paint. It's water-based. I would recommend oil-based. Now this is a super, super fine tip. This is me trying to do it on camera with caffeine in my system, which if you want a professional's opinion, do not drink caffeine before you do any kind of detail work, because it ends up looking like a person who is blind and drunk doing it. I also suffer from shaky hands, so naturally my work isn't perfect, but as you can see, I am trying my best to put down the end strike bit on the Elite logo there. This is reminiscent of the Gear Up Recon and the Gear Up Raider grip. They both had this little logo painted in the inside of the grip to make it pop, and I really, really like how that looks, and I might try and steal this idea in the future for more Gear Up themed blasters, because this is not the only thing that I'm going to be painting Gear Up. I have a lot of projects in mind that involve just Gear Up colors, because Gear Up and Crimson are my favorite lines of blasters. Right next to the original N-Strike, I personally think that Gear Up and Crimson are the best looking blasters despite their rarity. So I'm finishing up the shield and then going on to the lightning bolt. And putting this off camera because I need to look very intensely at this, as I don't want to make it worse than it already looks. And that is it finished, and we're going to do that to the other side. I won't show that on camera because that is tedious and boring. We're taking this Gear Up Recon into kind of the inspiration. So that's the plan for this build. As you can see, the other side came out a lot better. I had better hand control, and not being stressed out without showing my face on the camera, I was able to do a better job. So what we're going to do is reminiscent of the Gear Up Recon, which is paint an orange stripe on the grip, because on the Recon they did a weird green or orange green. They did a weird orange line across the grip, and I'm going to be following the natural body line in the Alpha Trooper where it comes up. You can see the one on the workbench where it comes down and then to the left, down, to the right, down, and kind of highlight that little L section. You'll see what I'm talking about better when I get done taping this off. So as you can see, these are very, very basic 90s and 45s and 180 angles. They aren't too difficult to tape off, unlike some other decals. That looks pretty good for the top. And then for the bottom here, we'll tape it off, and I will just skip forward to when this is all said and done. Alright, so this is what both sides of the grip look like. So this is after everything was dried and painted. You can see the orange stripes on the pump grips there, the grill, and the drum, which came out looking beautiful. So I'm going to be assembling the Alpha Trooper. The first part of this recording did not go well, so that is why there's a weird gap in here, unfortunately. But you're going to want to make sure that the plunger tube is stuck in place and that the dart tooth guide is set in place. The Alpha Trooper is a weird one because you need to make sure the jam door is behind the bolt sled and that the dart tooth is like set, and you don't want to lose your spring. I was lucky and I was able to find mine while sifting on the floor, but make sure that you're careful when you reassemble a blaster, especially if you don't have spare parts like I do. And this will just be fished under there. If it's not fishing under there completely, you can unscrew the screw a little bit and it should slide into place better. And then you have your dart holder down there, which is kind of stupid, but I guess it's a neat feature for these end strike blasters. We'll put our catch back. Our catch will just slide into place and lock very nicely. Then you have our slam fire mechanism, which looks like that, and we're going to put it in place of the blaster. Now you can see my error right here. I did not put that hook where it sticks up to where the bolt sled is in front of the bolt sled, and we will be fixing that later. If you do what I did, it will not prime. This is our original spring, and we're going to be upgrading it. This is a spring out of a Busby crossbow. It is a lot stouter and a lot longer than the original spring, and this will fit into the Alpha Trooper no problem. We also lubed up the O-rings on the seals, so that's all good. When you reassemble any magazine-fed blaster, make sure that the magazine releases line up together. And sometimes Alpha Troopers are fickle to get back together. And then that fell out because that loves to fall out. Again, I hate that bit in every single end strike blaster that has it. I don't understand why it's there. For a magazine-fed blaster, I don't know why you would need storage for one more dart. But anyway, let's put on the stock cap. Now, to prevent cross-threading, you're going to want to unscrew until you feel a click or you hear a click in the plastic, and then you can screw forward, because cross-threading is when you chew up the threads on any screw port. Now remember to take these very tiny screws and put them in the top left screw ports, right to there and to here. And then we'll take the rest of our screws and sift through them and look for the 3 smallest ones. I found 2, or actually found 4 for whatever reason. I think the pump grip screws got mixed in with the Alpha Trooper's main body screws, but that's fine, as the short one goes to the left of the Nerf logo, one goes up there where the rail attachment teeth is, or rail is, and then this one goes to the rear end of that. And then this will go into the middle of those 2 screw posts. And then the rest of the main body screws will go back into wherever we took them out before. Alright, so reassembling our pump, we're going to put the smaller screws on the top of the pump grip to ensure we don't poke through the pump grip and have a crappy looking pump to our Alpha Trooper. And then the rest of the 3 will go into their screw posts. And you can see me trying to prime this back, and that is why it will not prime, because of that. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself, and this is how you fix this. Yep, just that little fix, and your blaster will work fine. So I reassembled the rest of this off camera, just checking to see if these screws were tight, because I was unsure when I assembled it the first time. So this is the Gear Up Alpha Trooper. It looks really sharp, and I absolutely love how this looks. With the upgraded spring, it shoots just a little bit harder, around 90 FPS. So let's do a comparison. So this is the original Alpha Trooper, firing elite darts. As you can see, the original Alpha Trooper is not the greatest at firing. To give this guy credit, I also found this at a Goodwill outlet and it was scratched to shit, and I think it was left primed. And we had a little bit of a jam there. So I'm pretty sure this thing was left primed for a very, very long time. And now let's move on to a serviced Elite Alpha Trooper that's stock. And get it jammed. When it fires like it's supposed to, it actually gets pretty good ranges. And now for our Gear Up Alpha Trooper, which looks amazing outside. Shooting zombie strike darts. I actually managed to blow the head off of a dart, and I fixed that off camera. And when this thing shot well, it shot really well. And Slamfire works perfectly. So here is the flukes that I had, and here is the original Alpha Trooper, and then some elites and a zombie strike from Clogs of the Barrel. We have some more of the white ones. There's an elite one, some zombie strike, and some white darts. And then we have some zombie strikes, more of the elites, and more zombie strikes. And all the way out here is where the two zombie strike darts from the Gear Up Alpha Trooper came from, shooting all the way down there. And they all look amazing sitting next to each other. I mean, just look at those. So this is the Gear Up Alpha Trooper. I really hope you like this blaster as much as I did, and I had a lot of fun making it. And to people who say that the Aki Trooper is rare, it's not. It's actually fairly common. So I'll let Grim take this away. So that is the end of this video. I hope you like this new kind of video. I wanted to try something new, and I wanted to use my microphone that I had got for my new PC. This will be my second video edited on my PC, so hopefully you guys enjoy. A lot of love has been put into this video, and a lot of work has been put into this Alpha Trooper as well to make it look as stock as possible. I know there is some imperfections in here, but I don't mind, because it makes it look like Hasbro actually made this as a mass-produced product, and they didn't really care too much about the blaster that they were working on. So I really hope you like this build as much as I do. If you have any comments, suggestions, concerns, put that in the comment section below. If you like my content, you can consider subscribing. You get updated whenever I upload a new video, which will be soon-ish. I have some projects done that I plan on putting a video out soon-ish. I just need to record them. So hopefully this pleases your grim appetite for my content for at least a little bit. So I will be seeing you guys later, and you know what that means. Peace out.